Welcome to the podcast that guides men to demystify and develop their intuition. I'm your host, Doug Beitz. Let's dig into the science and expand your horizons. Stephon Brown is a professional muse for hire, improviser, and self-published author based in Los Angeles. He has turned a personal lifelong struggle with neurodiversity into a new form of self-discovery and emotional intelligence by developing the thought crafts of mental cartography and performative communication. By using those, along with other specialized skills, Stephon is refining the art of modern musing to help individuals in all stages of life learn more about themselves, discover truths in their environment, and be more authentic to their personal journey. Stephon, welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you for having me. And that
Yeah,
was a lovely intro. It's
cool.
it's just it's nice to be reminded of what I do and why I do it.
Okay. So it's been about 2 months now since we originally spoke and decided to do the podcast. And like a muse, it's not something that you see commonly around. And now you're a muse for hire. How did you tell us how it all evolved to get into this business?
Um it evolved out of it made itself in that I hit a point in my life. I've always been very intuitive and interested and very curious. And I had spent 20 years trying to break into the world, the cinematic world, as a screenwriter and wasn't getting anywhere. And then I tried the world of corporate for a while, wasn't getting anywhere. And then I kind of hit my midlife crisis and I decided to reevaluate and look at exactly who I was, what I was good at, and what I wanted to do. And what that gave me was actually the ability to look into myself and kind of understand my authenticity gave me the ability to look into other people and understand their authenticity. So I kind of discovered this ability as I discovered what I was good at.
And
And it's just fascinating and so fun. I love it.
so, and like you say, there I got a couple of thoughts there. One, I want to ask, what are you good at? But before we get to that, it's you're talking there. It's so easy to see it in other people because you were trying to discover it in yourself, and then you'd
Yes.
realize that when you were looking for that, you could see it in others. So, what are you good at? Tell us.
Well, that's the method exploration that muses are about. A muse is about understanding. You basically turn your body into a tuning fork to understand the rest of your environment. So we study the way human reactions. We study human interactions. We study the way we respond to different things, the way we view art. We look at everything that a human does to kind of display who they really are. And then we find the things that are in the way, the inconsistencies. We have a bunch of different techniques and things to do that, but that's kind of the core of it is we seek to find the authentic person underneath however many layers have been put on them, whether that's put on them by themselves or put on by society or situation. It doesn't matter. We don't care. We're just trying to find whoever the real person is underneath.
Okay. And I remember when we spoke last, you you mentioned that this what you do is like a form of coaching, but at a whole
Yes.
different level. So, like, just explain the difference between if someone was coached or if they took on your services.
Well, a coach, the way I explain this is that there are rules for coaches and therapists based upon like the way society wants to approach help. Muses come from an approach. We don't approach it from a society standpoint. We come at it from a humanity standpoint. So we don't follow any of that. So we go into people's homes, we examine their environments, we take them out on experiences. We'll go on dates with people to see how they interact with the world. Musing is about instead a therapist or a coach will talk to you at a meeting and they'll just like you'll talk to face like this. That won't help as a muse because there's so many things that we can hide in just the box that I'm showing you. A muse needs to see your environment, needs to see who you really are, how you're presenting yourself. And that's the only way we believe that that's the difference between musing and coaching is like coaches tell you what they think you want to hear to get your next level. Muses might have to tell you things you don't want to hear, but you will need to hear them because that's the authentic you. So you don't hire us to hear the platitudes. You hire us to hear the truth.
Okay, so you will go to someone's environment.
Hmm.
So it's then difficult for you to do this via Zoom, or could someone walk around their environment with their camera, or
Yeah, they walk around their environment with their camera. Like I have clients who are completely via Zoom, but we'll have experiences together over Zoom. Or they'll show me like their entertainment palettes, or they'll walk me through their fashion like this week, or they're like, it's all about kind of figuring out like what they're showing me versus what they're telling me and looking for the inconsistencies between those two, because that's where truths really lie. Because sometimes you don't even know what the truth is until someone points out that, well, you have all of these pictures of your ex-husband, but no pictures of your current husband. What, and like,
wow. Yeah.
if
What's that
I
telling us?
exactly, and I've walked into environments and it's been that obvious, but their therapist never saw it because their therapist doesn't go to their house and doesn't see how they decorate. Like it's not just about the wrapper that we present to the world. That's what everyone else sees. Muses, we have to get past the wrapper, like, and dig in to see who the real chocolate beneath, because that's where the golden ticket is.
Yeah. So did you come up with this idea yourself, or did you see other people as
No,
muses for hire and thought that's me?
no, this is something I've kind of freshly developed. The two worlds I'm kind of developing are modern musing, which is kind of a retelling of what old muses used to do in the Renaissances, and modern and mentor cartography, which is actually just high level pattern recognition. So neither of these two things are actually completely original in any way, but they are the way I'm packaging them together. It's modern musing and mental cartography are kind of these new structures of ideas that are the things that I'm working with.
Okay, so eh, excuse my ignorance of the whole musing world. I've got a very, very basic understanding of it. Walk us through what an ancient muse used to
Oh,
do.
okay. Ancient muses, well, the original muses were nine semi-goddesses of the ancient world who, if they found a mortal that they found worthy, they gave them ideas. And it wasn't just artistic ideas, it was ideas about science and mathematics, art, architecture, anything that you had a muse for any creative idea that you could have. Now that's where the ancient muses were. Now, if you cut to the Age of Enlightenment or the any of the Renaissances, there were actual kind of practical muses, which were these great artists would have lesser or like specialized artists below them, like artisans below them. Like there were a lot of famous sculptors who would have younger artists do just their hands. And these were like specialized young artists who were invigorating and who brought like their perspective to the art, and the artists would learn to trust them. And so there are a lot of artists whose muses were practical like helpers in the Renaissance world, painters, all of them, they all helped. And that kind of dropped away when kind of creativity became very money driven. Like once, the world of IP doesn't allow for a lot of musing in the traditional sense. It didn't used to. Now it does because of the way we do things now. Any muse, we give away our IP. Muses don't own anything we think of for our clients. So we give away all our ideas. Like that's part of the um
So when you
kind
say
of the
IP, you're talking about intellectual property.
yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So when a muse walks into it, like we'll get hired to come into writers' rooms, and any idea we come up with belongs to that writer's room. It doesn't belong to us. And that's just one of the things about, giving up our creativity to the world is we don't want possession of it. We have too much. We have too
Mhm.
much creativity. We want to give it away.
Yeah, fair enough. Like, and yeah, I that whole ownership of things. I've often wondered that, and I'll pick on the musical world, and I'm not picking on them. I have nothing against them. I love music, but it's like I own the copyright to that tune, that song, and it's like, yeah, I've often thought, and I haven't thought of a muse helping them, but I'm thinking that what you put together, you pulled those tunes and sounds and notes out of the ether somewhere.
Yeah.
And it's not, you think it's original and it's potentially not. Potentially there
Oh,
was a muse or the universe or whatever there, like passing that through to you so for you to now to make money from it, fine, but to own it so that no one
right.
else can. It's like, come on, come on. It's
Yeah.
like the air. I'm patenting air, and you can't. No one can breathe it unless they pay me like 1 cent a breath. So really, yeah.
Yeah, it upsets me when creative people say we're being strangled and taken away when as soon as they chance they can they take their ideas away from everyone else and say this is just mine.
Mm,
It's like creativity is a group project. We're all here to create and be artistic around each other. And like that's the best creativity is when you're getting different values and different things meshing together. I've always thought the next level of IP is piecemeal. When you like instead of buying like a whole story, you just buy one character or one plot point and you like put together things from different movies because that's what they do already. Why wouldn't it be?
yes,
That'd be fun,
yeah.
interesting. It's like, okay, we're gonna buy this action sequence from this one James Bond movie, and we're gonna add it into this, and we're gonna put a character that we love from this thing in there.
Yep, yeah.
Why not?
Yeah,
They're
and
already
like I
doing it with
say, that's
AI.
what they're doing. Yeah, exactly. Guys, if you're on a path of developing your intuition, and I know you are, that's why you're listening here, then the Neurovisor is a tool worth checking out. It uses light and sound to guide your brain into deeper states of awareness, helping you quiet the noise, tap into your inner knowing, and strengthen your intuitive muscle. And who doesn't want that? There's no pills, no fluff, just 11 minutes a day to reset your mind and reconnect with your instincts. I've bought myself one last Christmas and I've added it to my daily practice, and the shifts are real. This is not a paid ad, but if you use the link in the show notes for more information, I do receive a small percentage of the purchase price. I highly recommend you check it out. I know, like, on a similar sort of scale to that, about 35 years ago, I woke up one morning with a very stiff neck and it just wouldn't get better. And after about 3 days, my sister come to visit and I was like a bear with a sore head. I couldn't move it. And she just said, "Oh, you need to go and see this guy like that I've been to, like he'll fix you up." So she just got on the phone and made an appointment for the next day for me. And I went and saw this guy, and he was here in Australia, but he was Canadian, and he'd come out to Australia, and he was probably about 50 years old, and he did, he worked on me like it definitely wasn't like a chiropractor, but he physically worked on my body, and then he said, "I need you to come back in 3 or 4 days' time, and then that's it. Like I only ever need to see you twice." So I went back, and he did whatever he did, and he fixed me. Like it was great, and then I ended up, he was running a Swedish massage course. So I went along and did an 8 week, 20-hour course. So I went and did that. And while we're doing it, he was explaining to the group that he'd developed like all of these different techniques and he'd put this with that and, all these different things he'd studied. He goes, "But I'm not telling anyone in the world how to do it because it's my technique. And and so he says, I'm not teaching you guys any of that stuff. I'm just teaching you basic massage." And I learned a lot doing that. It was just a basic thing. He would tell. About a year later, like in his early 50s, he had a brain aneurysm and died on the spot. Boom. And it's like, you just took that gift you had from the world. He was awesome. He would fix you. He could just had this intuitive ability. He had this physical ability. And because you go to a chiropractor, they want you to come back half a dozen times, like do a bit,
Oh
do a
yeah.
bit, it's just, I just reckon they had another BMW payment, but I'm being very cynical there. But this guy just, "I need you for 2 appointments and that's it. And then you'll be fixed." And he was
Yeah.
right. But he wouldn't, he just, it was very deliberate. "I won't teach anyone this method. It's my method. I own it." And then it's like, and he was a very giving, helpful guy to the world and to his clients. But then it went.
Right.
And then when he died
Yeah.
very early, it's just like, oh, just robbed the
Well,
world of that gift.
he made himself very valuable, which is one key
Mm,
of being creating importance of yourself is like make yourself invaluable to the world. But the part he missed was leaving your legacy the way you want to.
yeah.
And he like if you don't give it away in any sense, like your legacy dies with you, but your legacy is at some point, all we are is the stories that were told about us.
Mm. Yep.
And his stories just died right there.
Yeah, exactly. Now, another question off that topic. I notice the name of your website, the Barstool things. Like how did,
The Barstool theories, yes.
yeah, where did that come from?
That's from my first book. My first book was is called The Barstool Theories, a late night crossfaded conversation that may just explain all of human behavior. Um, Basically, one night I got crossfaded, which is high and drunk, and I realized that there was a part of my brain activating where I figured out the a theory for all of human development. And that's where my that was and what I realized now was that was actually my first real musing. That was my first mental connection of like creating these, like seeing the patterns in the world and starting to put them together. So that I wrote a book about that first musing idea, and I created a website about it. And then I wrote a second book, which was basically describing how I wrote the first book because I started analyzing how my brain operated. And that second book, which was the Barstool Theories 2, my first mental cartography handbook abridged, um, was just digital, which is now no longer available. That was my Muse training course. And I took that and I've actually just finishing, I worked on it today. I've turned it into to a phone app. So it's now a phone training app that I'm going to be like releasing later this year. So that's how I'm releasing my legacy is took the things I'm learning from using and I'm making training apps for people to
Excellent.
learn these things because I think these skills are just as helpful for every single person, not just, for muses professionally.
Yeah. So have since you started musing, have you met other people who do it, or are they few and
I've
far
met other
between, or
very few and far between officially. I've met people who do it naturally. I've met natural muses. Two of my founders in my program are actual natural muses. Um, so, but I feel like there are people. It just there's not enough awareness of it. It's not something that people really thought because I love philosophy. But if you say the word philosophy to people, they automatically, think you're snobby and weird and you're studying something odd in college. But if you say musing, they get interested
mm.
because that's the thing is like I think there is now kind of a pushback against intellectualism that people are too snotty to think and I'm like I thinking in great conversation is one of the greatest gifts that humanity has. And I love inspiring that in other people. I love talking to people who
and,
are interested.
and I love it too. Look, and I went to the 10th grade. At 15, I turned 15, I was 15 and 2 weeks when I started my first job full time. I got an apprenticeship as a locksmith. I couldn't wait to leave high school. My mum said to me, because in Australia back then, I'm in my early 60s now. Back then, you went and you finished year 12 at high school if you knew you wanted to become a school teacher, a doctor, a lawyer, an architect, an engineer. You went and you got what we called your senior certificate. But if you were going to get a normal job, you left after year 10 and you got a junior certificate from the high school. So I got my junior certificate, bang, and I think it was a week or two before school ended. One of my manual arts teachers, he taught me metalwork and technical drawing. He called me off parade and he sort of gave me the nod, like, I want to talk to you after parade. And he just said, we've had a company ring up and they're looking for an apprentice locksmith. Are you interested in going for an interview? And I'm still 14, and I'm like, yeah, because I don't want to come back to school. And mum said if I don't get a job over the summer holidays, I've got to go back to school to year 11. Yeah, I'll go for an interview for anything. I don't even know, I've never even heard of a locksmith, but turned up and ended up getting the job and off I went. And but then, years later, I became a professional firefighter and they sent us off to all sorts of management schools. And, so I sort of rose through the ranks there and you'd go away and like 5-week live-in courses for all to do with managing people, managing incidents, like it was all theory. So I got advanced diplomas and all sorts of things with the fire service as as we did it, like in my late 20s, then I sort of got all those qualifications and stuff later. But yeah, so I'm, and I love learning. Like I thrive on learning, but I'm not a
Right.
big one on the education system.
No.
It's the system sucks in my opinion. And I only know
Yep.
Australia's system, but we've copied the rest of the world. And yeah, I'm
The
extremely happy
the
with my
current
life.
education system is a very, very flawed umbrella that attempts to throw itself over as many students as it can, uh, by being in the middle instead of anywhere interesting. And there are so many people on the fringe who just do not fit in. And instead of them being looked towards as something unique and interesting that we can mold and allow to become something fun, we get hammered into place
Yeah,
and get thrown into whatever situation they think they can make money off us.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So there's
But
no universities running musing classes?
not yet.
No,
No,
no.
but here's the thing. Every renaissance happens after a plague. I'm trying to kickstart the post-COVID renaissance. I believe we are now in this world of unique intercommunication with the world, and we are ripe for another big artistic explosion where we can see, connecting ideas around the world. A lot of them are connecting about how bad America is right now, but it's nice to see that the world is getting together and agreeing that we're if we don't know what the hell we're doing, man. Ugh.
We're
But
all in the same boat, mate. We've got a federal election coming up on the 3rd of May, a national election. And it's just like if you look at the two main parties, like the leaders and their
right,
qualities, it's like, oh, you've got to be kidding. And I interviewed another gentleman from the US, and this was just before your last election. And he said, we've got a choice between, and I can't remember the two things, a choice between a broken leg and an appendicitis that bursts, like
yeah,
which one are you going to choose, or, two broken legs. Like it's like, and we're sort of in the same boat here. It's like, but we are fortunate here that we have like you guys just seem to have your two parties. We're now getting a lot of independents as well,
okay.
and so we've got a lot of federal senators who are independent, and
Oh, that's great.
yeah, and they're attempting to take the balance of power away so that one party does not have the balance of power. So, and it actually it is like that right now. There's another party that's got 12 senators, and the the main party have to keep going, and
Yeah, see, that's the thing. That's the thing with politics and musing don't mix because
no,
like musing is about truth and politics is so much about image
yes,
and what is what's the word the not the filter but the viewpoint of everything. But I don't know.
yeah.
But yeah,
Even
and
one of Yeah, even one of the independent senators who's running at the moment, who I listen to a lot of things he talks about. He puts himself on social media a lot, and I really agree with a lot of what he says. The other day, he said like he's trying to now get other people voted in, come under his umbrella, and so like basically so that when the main party wants to put new legislation through, he just
yeah.
said, like, we'll agree to it if they'll agree to one of our policies. So we'll sign off on your thing that we don't really like if you get one of our things through, which, so ultimately they're trying to, get something that they think's great through, but they're going to do it by
Well,
compromising elsewhere.
that is the when politics works properly, that's how it's supposed to work. No
Mm.
politics, proper politics means no one goes home happy.
Yeah.
Like that's the point, is because the reality of like what musing has taught me is no one has the same opinions and values. And we're such different human beings that we need to have different representations for all of these different voices. And it's really, really freaking hard to represent those voices well and to make sure they're all heard. But that's why the job of politicians is hard. It is a hard job. It shouldn't be easy. Like you're speaking for a group of people who have 1,000 voices, all like Like, yeah, it's going to be hard, but going in there inspecting, like, I don't know why I can't get anything through. Well, Dick, that's your job.
Yeah. Yep.
You
Yeah.
said you could do it.
Yes. They certainly do so they
Uh,
can do it.
we didn't say like we agreed. You said you could do it. We agreed. Go.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny what the big parties are promising now. Oh, if you re-elect us, we'll do this. And it's like, well, you've been in for the last, 8 years.
Yeah.
Why didn't you do it then? Why are you waiting
Yeah.
till now to promise it? And it's such a big promise that it's going to take 3 or 4 years to implement. And in 4 years' time, we've got another election, so it may not even get implemented if the other party get in. It's like,
Yeah.
what? Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
you know, they want to remove bribes. I think they should go the other way. I think they should make all the politics gratuity based. If you don't do a good job, you don't get tipped.
yeah,
Like, like your pay should be zero, and
yeah,
then you have to earn your pay every day in a
yeah,
gratuity.
yeah, yeah.
Like, do enough for American, like, do enough for people that you've earned it. Like, oh,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, good point. And then we could all vote online at the end of the day that
yes,
what they did today. Yeah. Oh, and we'll all select an amount they should be paid for the day's work, and they'll average that out.
yes.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
well, it is Christmas, so
yeah,
here you go, little
yeah,
extra.
yeah. Actually, over in Iceland years ago, they had like a major political change over there, the system, and they got over 200 people in to rewrite their constitution or something like that.
Wow.
And it was online every day. So at the end of every day, you could go on and see what they'd done that day and what they were proposing and everything. It was almost live.
Wow. Okay,
Oh,
so you were watching a constitution getting written over a Google Doc.
yeah, basically. It went for months, of course. And there's like
That's
over
that's awesome.
200 people from a very diverse part. They're all very different, all, and put it together. So it was something like that. This is like, I think this was a bit after the global financial crisis, so probably 2010, something like that, I'm guessing.
It's
Um,
yeah, it's just a
mm,
beautiful it's a different image from a quill pen,
yeah,
signing on a big wooden desk and a declaration of constitution here. Now just
yeah,
click.
yeah, yeah. So,
As per
uh,
paragraph 3, smiley face, smiley face.
yeah. So in your bio there, you talk about neurodivergence. And when we talked a
Yes.
couple of months ago, and since I've been talking to you here so far, I haven't noticed anything that would, but obviously from your side, you see different things. So do you want to share a little bit about that? Like what?
Yes, I was diagnosed with attention deficit disorder at the age, I think it was around 5 or 6, and that was in the early 80s in the United States. And so at that time, they didn't even have it wasn't ADHD, it was ADD. And the only treatment they had was Ritalin and shame, neither of which worked for me. I was on Ritalin for a year, um, that I don't remember. My mother says I was a ghost. She says I was kind of a walking ghost the whole time. And so she took me off it. But since then, um, I have attention deficit disorder. I also have numerical dyslexia where like different numbers will get jumbled in my head. And then anxiety and depression. But, those mostly come from not understanding how your brain's working and, being tricked by yourself. Um, but I realized as I got older and more information about neurodiversity came out, and I realized I am actually probably falling somewhere on the autism spectrum as well, and there are so many different elements mixed into that umbrella of neurodiversity that people really don't know how interconnected they all are yet. Uh, so I kind of took that as an anchor point of like me jumping off of like, you know what? No one else really knows as much. No one else is going to know what's going on in my head except for me. So I might as well figure out as much as I can on my own. And that's kind of where a lot of this started was I just realized my brain is different than everyone else's. And I'm the only one who could find out why.
Yeah, good point. Good point. So when you say numerically, there, like do you see numbers, like are they reversed or are they Wow.
I can't remember them. I can there's only two phone numbers I have memorized, mine and my wife's. That's it. I'll often invert fives and sevens. Like fives and sevens, six and eights will often get swapped in my head.
This is when you're
Um,
thinking of them or when you're reading them?
when I'm trying to recall them. Like if
Okay.
you give me an address,
Mm-hmm.
I'll forget it within seconds
All right. So if I said it was
because
28 Smith Street, would you remember Smith Street or just forget the
yeah.
numbers?
Well, I might remember it. Well, um I've worked on it, so I'm getting better at it. But I would remember Smith Street because Smith Street to me creates a visualization, like the number doesn't.
Okay.
I realized I'm very narrative driven, so anything that has a story to it, I can remember.
Right.
So if I put it like story problems in math, I could do,
Yeah.
or geometry, I could do because it's a shape. Like I can picture it. Oh, it's like this, you know. Oh yeah, if
Mhm.
I got a park, I got a fence this big, that big, that's easy. But where it's an abstraction of like solve for X, and I'm like, I got no, nope,
Yeah.
no.
Interesting. But if you're reading the numbers on the page, it like at that moment, it makes
I
sense.
can,
They're not
yeah,
reversed or that.
no,
No.
not
Okay.
while I'm reading them consciously, when I'm trying to recall them. So
Okay.
it's a like a yeah, and then yeah, some but
Interesting.
uh, mhm.
Yeah. Something you said earlier, you were talking about, the world's getting more accepting of getting better. Like, we're changing something. It made me think of, I've recently interviewed a gentleman, and have you ever heard of a podcast that's been out for the last year or so called the Telepathy Tapes?
I have actually just heard about that. Someone mentioned it on my one of my channels. So yeah, but I'd love to hear your explanation.
Well, um, I've
Well,
been
from what I
addicted.
remember, I
There you
haven't
go.
heard it, but I've heard about it. So what I heard was it's a way of exploring like non-communication in the on the autism spectrum, or different people who are nonverbal like forms of communication, correct?
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, those people are the non-verbals are communicating telepathically with their parents or their carers or their teachers or that sort of thing. And it goes on and on and on because my podcast that came out last week, the gentleman I interviewed on that, he appeared on the telepathy tapes. That's how I found him. And his
Oh,
wife
nice.
had early onset Alzheimer's. Now, they become non-verbal within a couple of years typically, and his wife did. She 56, she got diagnosed with it, and very young, and she
Yeah.
became non-verbal, and it became very frustrating for him because she forgot how to like sit down. So he would have her like to take her to the bathroom or to get her in the car. She couldn't remember how to sit down, and he said it could take him an hour to get her to sit on the toilet. And
Yeah.
it just, you've got to listen to the story, but how all of a sudden he telepathically was able to start communicating with her. And all of a sudden, this hour-long process turned into 12 seconds. It just
Yep.
was, like boom, 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 done. And it was just like, oh God, like he's just like, geez. Like, he realized what was going on. And then now he's become telepathic with other people like that who, when his wife had to go into a nursing home, there was all these Alzheimer's patients in there, and they all started coming up to him, like looking at him and telepathically communicating with him. So it
Yeah.
was sort of and it's not like this just suddenly happened for him. Like he'd had a meditation practice for 20 plus years.
No,
He'd
there's
already opened his frequency up to other things, but he didn't go looking for this. It just started to occur, and yeah.
one of the things I've realized in my music. I have a friend who's a Reiki specialist who recently did an energy healing on me, and and ironically I've also worked on a lot of ghost shows. I've worked in post production on a lot of shows where did investigations. And one of the things I remember from one of our shows is there are people who are closed off, who will never see ghosts, who will never feel weird energy, and they're just blanks. And they just always will. And they will never understand it because they're just closed. But they believe that everyone's closed. So that's how they don't believe what's going on. And then there are people who are the exact opposite, who have been open their entire lives. And it's just getting people to realize your perspective is not the only one. Like, yes, there's every spectrum of it. Because I have dabbled in the openness, and like my friend is teaching me how to ground. And yeah, you can feel there is energy in this world that is undeniable. What it is, I do not know yet,
Yeah.
but we're surrounded by it.
Yeah. Yeah, quite a few years ago, probably 2017, 2018, I went to California 3 times over 18 months and trained to do energy clearing. And I'm in a room full of women, of course, and they, the instructor pulls out her pendulum and she sort of proceeds to teach us how to use it. She goes, and there's a pendulum up the front here for all of you, all wander all up, pick your pendulum. And I'm sort of glancing at them from back where I'm sitting and I'm thinking, oh God, they're all like pink and orange and shiny and sparkly. Like, when you got a guy's one. So I sort of went up there and I sort of was one of the last ones to go up and look, and I sort of found one that was left over that was brown, and it's like, and I still have it now. And it's beautiful, but and I have it in a nice little pouch, and I've used it literally thousands of times now, and it
And
I've got to be careful. Well, it works. Like there's no power in the pendulum. It's got zero power. Like our teacher, she said from the first minute she started talking about it, she said, you can use a wet tea bag. Just squeeze it out enough so it doesn't drip water all over the place and
huh,
hold the little string. Or you can get a rock from the garden and get a piece of string. Like, and it will do the same thing as these sparkly, shiny pendulums. And that there's no power in the physical object. It's a
yeah,
biofeedback tool. But I, when I'm going to work with mine, I just have to wait and leave it sitting in the drawer till I'm ready, and then I get it and I have it in the pouch. But if I just know that I don't pull it out of the pouch till I need it and want it right,
yeah,
like what, because my system turns on and I can feel it, and it's like it wants to work. And like I say, it would be exactly the same if I went to the kitchen drawer and got a wet and ran a tea bag under the tap and squeezed it out. Like just having that, because my system is like, oh, Doug is going to use a pendulum to clear energy.
yeah,
And it's so for a while I was wondering what was going on there. I would have my pendulum out, sort of sitting in my hand while I'd be talking to someone because I wouldn't be ready to do anything yet. And it's like, no, pick up the tool when you're ready because my system will change. And
yes,
yeah, and that was that going through that, and the instructor warned us. She goes, you're here for 5 days. Your lives are about to change. And I'm thinking, yeah, like, da, 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 yeah, whatever, like I'm steak on the plate kind of guy, like I'm not pie in the sky. And our course, we're there for 5 days, and the course went from 10 in the morning till 12. And then we would have lunch. And then we would go back like from 3 till 4:30, and then a couple of nights we'd do a little bit. And I'm thinking, I flew all the way from Australia. This is like a really short, like we should be doing like 8 hours a day. And she's warning us that like this is going to be like you don't want to overload your system, all this sort of stuff. I recommend after lunch, you just go and you have a nap, or you go, and the conference center was in a redwood forest in California. Like go for a wander
Whoa,
through the redwood forest or something, like just
oh,
chill. Oh, she was right, man. Like it was like overwhelming. Like it was, I'm glad we didn't do like all day like stuff. You'd have crashed out on the curled up
yeah,
under a tree outside before you even walked back to your room. It's crazy, the energy stuff. And so I would have all these physical sensations in my body that I couldn't understand or interpret, and that started me on this intuitive journey, because like I'm intuiting things but I can't interpret them. And I actually screamed out to the universe while I was driving, not aggressively, but just like emotionally one day, um, driving in my car. Like I'm on my own and I'm on a 1 hour drive, and I'm like, send me someone to help me interpret the language of my intuition, because I don't understand what all of this information coming through my body and the physical feelings. and the I can't describe all these things. Like, send me something. And within 2 days, bang, it just came out of the blue. It was crazy. Like, it was like, wow, because the universe knew I was serious. And like I say, I wasn't aggressive with what I said, but I was very emotional, and I wasn't growling at the universe for like giving it to me and without an instruction book. But yeah, I didn't have the instruction book. I've got this new. I've got a language book. I've got a book in front of me with heaps of like fucking really good shit to learn, but I can't. It's in a different language, and I don't understand it. Like, I need someone to interpret. Can you hear that rumbling? Is that at my end?
Not
I'm just
sure.
wondering. Actually, it was kind of rainy before we started this. That might actually be thunder out. If you're hearing, it could be thunder at my end. I'm not sure.
Yeah, not hearing anything my end.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Yeah, I think I'm here feeling the vibration of it. Yeah, so it's yeah, we've woken to a bit of a gloomy morning here. It's yeah. Anyway,
no wonders, no worries.
yeah, all good.
But I think, yeah. Um, sorry, that thunder kind of sounded like a good close to the convers to that kind of part of the conversation.
No worries. What I got here, I was gonna. Oh, one question I had for you, and I often ask this to people, so I'm not picking on you with this question, but I'm just
All right.
curious because it's something that I've have a lot of. Is I have a lot of fears, so I'm curious, what's your greatest fear?
Oh, uh, prison, being trapped,
Yeah,
like, yeah, loss of freedom.
like
Um,
physically or in your
any
mind?
manifestation of that. I don't like my ha like have my arms being pinned, honestly,
Mm-hmm.
because it feels unfree. But like any I like having fresh air around me,
Yeah,
so I don't like stale air. So I don't like that. Like so, like being under, yeah, being in a mine shaft. You ain't getting me down there. Nah,
yeah,
no, 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 no.
yeah.
Yeah, I have a yeah I have a kind of situational claustrophobia. I would believe.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So even in the mine shaft, even though it's open above you for hundreds of feet, it's yeah,
Yeah, they say that.
yeah.
Yeah, it's open right now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Ask the Chilean miners how quickly they can close.
yeah. I remember when I was doing my fire service recruit training, I was only 19, so I'm the youngest out of our group of 8. And we had two instructors, and one of them was old school rat. He just would do everything he could to annoy us, to try and put us off, to try and make us quit. He was just, and we had this like big well where we used to pump water out of for training, and all the we used to. It was on the side of a hill, so we would shoot the water above it, and then the water would flow back down into it. But it would flow in with like a million leaves that had fallen off all the trees. So
Right.
they found that there was probably like 3 or 4 feet of dead vegetation at the bottom of this well. So they decided to set up this tripod at the top, which was part of all of the equipment we had, and because I was the youngest and greenest, it was like, okay, firefighter Beitz, get sit on here, and they lowered me down into this thing, and then they lowered a rubbish bin tied to a rope and a shovel down, and I had to sort of shovel it all into that, like down in this thing, and this was like over 40 years ago. Now, like, I've done all sorts of work health and safety training as well. Like, it was confined space. And so you would have to have artificial breathing apparatus on, which we had and we were trained to use, but they didn't give it to me down in the hole, like, and because all my recruit buddies, they're like pulling the rope up with the half full of, all this decayed vegetation. And when they get it to the top, they'd sort of look at each other and grin and tip a little bit of it back on top of me again. And it was not a fun sort of
Mm,
day out, that one, but yeah, down the hole, and it wasn't that deep. It was probably 25, 30 feet down, but yeah, yeah, but yeah, that one didn't bother me. But there was other training things we had to do that weren't as much fun, I can tell you. But,
so you went from so you could a lockpick to fighting fires. That's
yeah,
pretty badass.
yeah. Yeah,
You got
did
any
that
other
for.
like secret James Bond talents?
I'm a scuba instructor. Um,
Scuba diver as well. Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I've done
Yeah.
over 2,000 dives. Yeah, yeah. We used to own our own little scuba resort on a little tropical island north of the equator between Hawaii and Guam. Yeah,
Oh, like you do. Of
yeah,
course.
yeah. Most
You're
people
a very
do that.
yeah, you're a very interesting guy. You've found ways to satisfy a lot of your joys in life, and that's really
Yeah.
good.
And now I have a pendulum and I spin that around to clear people's energy. And
Yes.
yeah, so yeah, it's all very similar sort of vocations.
Helping people. Yeah. Helping people in situations that yeah, that are overwhelming. Because like picking up, like helping a lockpick, fighting a fire, helping people with energy. It's all about taking care of someone when they're overwhelmed.
Yeah. Or and helping people to relax underwater because that's extremely relaxing. It's meditative. I was talking with someone about
Nice.
this recently, and have you ever scuba dived?
I have not. I've snorkeled, but I want to get certified, but I have not yet.
Yeah. So once you've done, I'm just going to say, let's say you've done a dozen dives. You've got, and all I mean is you've got comfortable with the gear. You're no longer thinking, where's this? What's that? Where's my pressure gauge? What do I do now? What button do I push? You know,
Yeah.
you're past that. You're comfortable. You go underwater. And you could be, before you hopped, the day before you could have been suicidal. Like life's just not going well at all. You've just declared bankruptcy, whatever. And you go underwater, and once you're 6, 8 feet down, you can't have those thoughts anymore. They go. They You can try to, because, and I was describing this the other day to this gentleman. I said, like, we were running the business through the global financial crisis. Well, after it, like in a couple of, and business had really dropped off a lot. And we used to order our food 6 weeks and order and pay for our food for the restaurant 6 weeks in advance. So you know, there was a lot of expenses. And I would be at times quite concerned about how the business was going. We had 16 employees, paying their wages, and I'd be kind of stressed over stuff. And then customers would come and we'd go scuba diving for the day. And you'd drop down under that ocean for an hour, and I would deliberately sometimes just try and recall those thoughts, and they just wouldn't come. Like the pages of that book wouldn't open. Like the book was glued shut. Like it's like while you're under the
Right.
water, it's over. You and you would just get into like almost like a meditative state, and you just the frequency changed down there. The recall of those
Yeah.
thoughts that would cause anxiety just didn't, the electrical connection just went. They're not there. You can't tap into that anymore, which was really nice. It was, yeah, great thing to do.
You found your happy place.
Yeah.
Like it's a sometimes they're metaphorical, but sometimes they're like physical. Like there are certain ways that our bodies just respond
Mm,
and we can't control it. And part of musing is about understanding those and using those to our advantage instead of using those to our disadvantage or using them to hurt ourselves. But like knowing that about you, like, someone could use that to escape all the time and you
yeah.
overuse it. But
Yeah.
like you don't. Like that's the balance of life and it's finding those little things and you can have all of these moments. Like that's what musing is really about, is creating moments because that's what life is about. And what you do, you just described, like you gave those people 1 hour away from everything. That is a moment that will help them in moments that will come in the rest of their life. Like those are the moments that we just reach back and like, oh, at least I was there. At least I had that. And so that's what muses do. We just do it everywhere. We just don't have a dive team to do it. I just have to use whatever I have to try and give someone the ability to find that spot, that moment. Like what is their dive moment? Like that's what I'm trying to do as a coach. And sometimes you
Yeah.
can't know.
Yeah. And yeah, I guess you've just got to walk into the situation and what I would call wing it. Like you just, You
Yeah.
and hence why I've got you on the show is because rather than winging it, you're relying on your intuition to give you something,
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Intuition and improvisation. I started performing improv comedy and studying it in 1993.
Wow.
So I've been, yeah. And that is a part of performative communication, which is another part of musing. But it's like I've studied improv is about studying the reactions that humans have and being able to mimic them accurately on stage. So I just took the other half of that and said, what if I just study that and reverse it and use my improv skills to work with people, and that it
Yeah.
all comes together.
So back then, you used to do stand-up comedy. You'd be up the front.
Not stand up,
No, I
not stand
know.
up. There's a difference between stand up and improvisation.
Okay.
The best example of improvisation. Have you ever seen the show Whose Line Is It Anyway? It's a British
I've
comedy
heard of
show.
it. Yeah, I'm not familiar with it,
Um,
but
have you ever seen the show? I believe the Australian show was Thank God You're Here.
no, no.
All right. Well,
Sorry.
it would be basically you get a suggestion from the audience, and you take that suggestion and you make it into either an improv scene or a full show. Or for one of the shows I do, we improvise a three-act play. So me and a partner we'll get one suggestion of a location, and then we'll set the location, and then do an hour to an hour and 15 minutes of improvisation of a real play. And that's what we do.
And
Um,
how much lead-in time do you give yourself?
what do you mean?
Like, well, if I said to you, here's the physical location, and I describe it to you in 3 sentences, how
Then
long, and then you're going
we would
to,
we would describe it. We would like point out like, okay, here's a couch, here's a desk over here, here's that, and then we would go and we'd start
oh
and we would
wow,
just improvise. And the way you do successful improv is actually the same way you have a successful relationship. You really have to pay attention to each other. You have to understand the wants and the needs of what's going on, but you also have to be able to activate and actively participate in what's going on in your life and in your scenes. And that's what the translation is. It's about you know, taking the like the taking the training wheels off ourselves that other people have told us about our performances and allowing us to really be,
so rather
the
than
actor who
comedy,
we are.
so rather than
Yeah.
comedy, it's acting. You're just the yeah,
It's just realistic performing. It's not
right.
going for comedy, it's going for truth.
Okay. And so you're on a stage in a theater somewhere with an audience.
Yeah.
And so
While I'm
and
performing for improv, yeah. Well,
wow.
I do for improv, I mostly do comedy, but for musing, it's interactive. It's like I'll go to events with people just to
Mm.
see, and I'll do things to see how they respond. Like um a part of musing is mischief because mischief is a part of life, and mischief is a comfortable way for us to explore the edges of our boundaries. At least that's how I use it. Um, and I think there's not enough mischief in life, and I think we don't give ourselves enough permission to play. And that's one of the things we try and do in musing is we try and play more because adults are corrupted children. Children are not small adults.
So could you give us an example of that where you've taken like what kind of event you might take someone to,
Oh,
or and what mischievous things you might get up to? I'm looking for ideas here. I love mischief.
um, well, so I've been to different events of different kinds. I don't like to explain too much because it gives away a lot of our tactics and the way we do things because a part of what we do is really about, natural and supplies and the flow. But so I there was a time when there was an event at the Hollywood Bowl. I'll tell you how things end up. The Hollywood Bowl is one of the most famous locations, performance locations in the United States. It's this big shell tucked into the Hollywood Mountains, and it's uh mountains. Well, they're kind of hills. Um, and it's a great venue because everything it has a noise ordinance, so every show has to stop by like 10 or 11, and so they clear out. But they let you bring in booze or like they let you bring in everything you want as long as you bring it out, including people. So if you go in with someone and you get inebriated to the point where you can't leave, they'll pick you up, they'll put you on a cart, and they'll take you out. They will do that. They will happily do that. But they will put your name on a list and you will never be invited back to the Hollywood Bowl again. So if you're drunk or passing out, it is your friend's responsibility to get you out of the Hollywood Bowl without your name getting on the list. I've had to do this twice, carrying other people for different events. Um, those are the kind of things that muses get up to. Um, but for those events, like I helped someone develop, that night was about developing a catchphrase for his company. Um, and that's really all I can tell you. But yeah, that was, so yeah.
Yeah, fair enough.
Uh, but yeah,
Yeah.
but it's about in my musing treatment, like my musing, there's an agreement. I have a musing agreement that has a lot of crazy shit in it that people don't understand because like if you anything you break, anything I break is on them. It says mischief is allowed. It's about it kind of gives me permission to do anything I need to prove a point to other people. Part of that contract is also seeing how people respond to the different things in there tells me what they think is important. And I've every time I've given it, every different client has responded to a different part of the agreement and said, like, why is this in here? And like, okay, that's where you're focusing.
Yeah,
And
right. So you straight up, you're picking up what's
you
their
can
button.
learn, yeah, you can learn so much if you just pay attention to what people pay attention to.
Yeah, I get you. Yeah, yeah, very, very interesting. So with the app that you were talking earlier about that you're working on or created, is that the first one you've done or you've done
Hmm.
others as well? And is
No,
it
this is the first one.
is the
It's called
idea
the Muse Desk.
okay.
So the idea is that it's going to be kind of a social community that I want to create that involves all these different creative people from different creative venues. So sculptors, architects, but also like gym rats and military people. Everyone who feels like they have creativity. They, I have these programs, these training programs on the desk that people go through, and it gives you all these topics and tricks and things. It gives you a vocabulary of tools that I use as a muse. And I want once you have enough people go through this, you have all of these brilliant people who now have this same vocabulary of things they can use to interact their different ideas. And that's what I want is a community of different brilliant people who are pushing each other with challenge art or providing like analysis for each other, providing peer review. It's like a peer review system where it's not just peers in your discipline. So it's like, so you would go in there and say, I have this project. I would like it peer reviewed by other people in the musing program. But instead of just getting other doctors to review it, you're getting lawyers, you're getting carpenters, you're getting like sculptors, you're getting all these different brilliant people to provide their input to you for free or not well for like for nothing because they all like we care about sharing information instead of more than like I don't know making money or I don't know
Mm,
hoarding our ideas.
yeah. Okay. So just like a platform for sharing information and assisting others that are requesting it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but specifically about like learning the truths and the things that work in our world and explaining how things work and how things
Hmm.
can interact in a positive way. It has to be all positive.
Yeah.
Shit doesn't work if we're all negative, if we're all just yelling that we're all terrible to each other. That doesn't no.
Yeah. We've got plenty of that already on social media. You can go there and
Yes.
read lots of
Nobody
shit there.
needs it. Let's
Yeah.
have a happy day.
Yeah. Exactly. So do you do any training at all to teach others to muse or
Yeah. This course like is part of it is going to be a training course specifically for muses. The other part is going to be for people who just want to learn the tactics to help themselves. The first book was kind of a guide to muses. So I'm going to keep developing that. And I'm going to eventually my goal is to have a musing company where I hire out, I have like a stable of great people I work with that I can send to do off different projects. And I want to have, pro bono work. I think there's a lot of, you know, world world amazing companies in this world that have great ideas but don't have that extra thing that like makes them stand out. And I think, there's so many ways to help people that have great ideas that, all I want to do is just I want to make up great ideas. That's all I want to do. I want to give the world, a brain that was told for so long that it had nothing good to do.
Mm,
And every time I help someone, I prove them wrong.
yeah, no, I hear you there, and I do hear you too with the whether things cost an amount of money or they're offered pro bono or whatever. And I often go back and forth with that because, like, say in the coaching world, there's the whole thing of like, oh, I'm going to do some pro bono coaching to get my skills up. And then it's like we have to, you have to charge a lot to
Yeah.
make the client value what you're giving them. And it's, there's all these different ends of the spectrum, and yeah, there's a lot of different ways to look at things.
Yeah.
And
Because
I
the world,
hear, and you listen to one way and it's, yeah, that sounds right. You listen to the other way and you think that sounds right. And it's how do you bring it all together and what really works?
you have to make it's authentic to you. That's the most key. Don't At the end of the day, the most important advice you hear is the voice you hear in your head. Like what is your heart telling you? And that's the hard part. Is like sometimes no like the reason you're not hearing a plan is because no one has done it yet. And you're
Right.
meant to do it yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. No, yeah, I hear you there. It's, yeah, and exactly what you've done. You've worked out what, you were good at.
Yeah.
And yeah, yeah,
And now I want to help other people do it too.
yeah, yeah. And I have that too, because I 2 days a week at the moment, I do fire safety training. Because when
Oh,
I was,
nice.
like say, I was a professional firefighter, and then after many years, I took a desk job, educating the public, for the fire service, and then I left, and now I just work for a private company, and so I go in, and part of what I love to teach in that the boss had the standard PowerPoint there that we have to teach for an hour and a half, and probably 2 or 3 slides in, the first line has got 2 words on it. It says remain calm. And so I usually, I'll say to the class, and I put my hand up and I say, I want a show of hands. How many of you have ever formally been taught to remain calm? And probably about every fifth class I run, and there's, say, an average of a dozen people in each class, I'll get one hand go up, and theirs comes up, and I pull mine down and I go, okay, we've got one person in the room, because I'm self-taught. Because when 42 years ago, when I did my 4 month recruit course at the fire station, they never talked about those 2 words, for us as firefighters to remain calm, because they didn't have a
Yeah.
fucking clue themselves how to remain calm. And yeah,
No.
like, so I talk them right, so then I, I then have developed my own spiel, because when I first started with this company nearly 5 years ago, like I went out and sort of shadowed the boss for a week, and I watched him run all the classes, and I thought, oh yeah, and then just brush over, just remain calm when it all hits the fan, and there's bloody flames coming out of the kitchen, or there's someone on drugs coming in with a weapon into the building. Just remain calm. Like, yeah, fuck, I
Yeah.
can do that. And so I spend, like, I cram a lot into the next sort of 5 to 10 minutes, because I've got limited time, and I go into breathing techniques and all sorts of stuff. Because I tell them, if you can't remain calm in emergencies, you won't remember anything else I'm about to teach you if you're in tunnel vision, like.
Yeah.
And so I've got quite a spiel about that, and I rip through it and I go through and I get their attention. They get emotional, like, as I go through the whole thing on how to remain calm. And probably 4 or 5 months ago, for some reason, my boss turned up at one of my trainings. He just after we did the training, we had to do an evacuation exercise of the building, and it was a large building spread out, so it needed 2 of us there for that. So he sat through the class, and I'm thinking this is going to be interesting because he's never seen me run this part of the class, you know. So, and I just gave it to him, and he just sat there the whole thing and just didn't bat an eyelid. He was quite happy, and because I didn't know whether he would chip me on it and say, "Doug, you've got to cut that bit down. That's a bit extreme." Because the rest, you know, there's half a dozen trainers, and the rest of us don't teach. We just say remain calm, and we go on to the next line, you know. And
Right.
but I just can't leave it at that because I've struggled when I was, you know, because I was 19. I was way too young when I joined the fire service for the shit that we had to do. And
Yeah.
you know, the situations you found yourself in, and everyone's running out and we're running in, you know, it's like um and I've always I struggled with it. And when I first became a scuba diver, I was not a calm scuba diver either. And but through the years, like then I had to become an instructor and to run our business. And you know, my wife, she would, if we got someone who was like a nervous student or kind of hesitant to learn, she'd say, "Doug's your instructor," because it was never economical for me with teaching because I just had to overteach them and you know just spend a lot of time with them because I wanted to know that they weren't going to die underwater, you know, because they'd had a because that's like 99% of scuba divers who pass away underwater. It's through panic.
Oh yeah.
Not it's not that anything went wrong, and it could be equipment failure, but because of the equipment failure, and there's a lot of redundancies built in, and your buddy's always around, and you can use part of their equipment, you know, like so. Equipment failure is a problem, but there's so much redundancy and so much training that that's not going to kill you. It's the sheer panic that will do it.
Yeah.
So yeah, but yeah, that's I just love flowing that way and just knowing that I've helped these people remain calm
That's
when they
great.
get into a tight spot because at that time it's challenging.
And it's not, and that's one of those things that's just not just about that moment. You'd like that's a life lesson that you could carry, or just, remain calm, stay calm.
Mm,
Like
mm,
it's just something that you can, like, that's the thing about, that's what I that's what I teach in musing, is that life lesson is great everywhere. And if we can just keep those truths and just, if we collect all of these, like remain calm here, you can remain calm there, like, check your air, like all the things that you learn in scuba gear, like you can, like there's parallels that you can use to, you know, throw out into other obsessions.
yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And I do say to them, you know, you might get in a tight spot. Your boss might ask you to you know, might say, Stephen, you're the best person in this company with this particular thing. The head boss, you know, the CEO is flying in this afternoon. I need you to, you know, tell him, give him a 10-minute spiel about this thing, you know, like he and his little mates that are going to come with him. And, you know, unlike some people freak out and go, I've never done that since I was at school. I used to hate talking to, you know,
Right.
use these techniques to keep yourself calm. You know, like you do know this
Yes.
stuff. Yeah. And yeah, like it's not just for an emergency, although that might seem like an emergency for you for some people at that time. But yeah.
Well, that's the thing, is emergencies come in different sizes, but you can treat them all the same.
Mm,
Staying calm helps you no matter the scale.
yep.
Like, that's the first thing we learn, is like if it works at some size, it may work at a different size. So, keep your truths moving.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And we always found at the fire station, there was only a handful of officers who could handle a big emergency well. Like it was Keystone Cops, like just really
Yeah.
it was behind the scenes. Like people didn't realize, you know, some things we just got out by the skin
Well,
of our neck.
my my father was a firefighter. I have my uncle's a firefighter. My sister, like I have them all through, like, and they're all wonderful people, but they're all crazy in their own way. Like it's kind of a wonderful mad person's world. And so, like, I've never found a firefighter that wasn't a unique individual. Uh and so yeah, no, that just doesn't surprise me. It's like, yeah, that sounds like
Yeah,
them. In America, that's, you know, we were
yeah.
we were driving through San Francisco, when I was going to college. My father was showing me a tour of the city. I'd never been there, and he saw one of those big hook and ladder trucks, like big fire trucks, drive
Mhm.
by. And he was volunteering in upstate New York, and I said, "Oh." being in San Francisco, that would be really great to be a firefighter here. And I thought, oh, having all this modern equipment, these really nice trucks. And he said, oh, no, no, you got a lot of old buildings. These go up real good. And I'm like, yes, firefighters are still just a little crazy. It's like, yeah, 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 yeah. I mean,
Well, everybody needs job satisfaction,
yeah,
and we would go to fires and they'd be out and we'd get there and we'd be like, please, like, if you just responded
yeah.
to a car fire, you go respond to a car fire at this address, it was either going to be out or absolutely blazing when we turned up. And if it was out, it
Ah,
was because some wonderful citizen had a fire extinguisher in the trunk of their car and they pulled it out and they're standing there very proudly with their empty fire extinguisher as we're thinking that we're just going to pat them on the back and go, dude, you are awesome. And they'd be going, think the fire brigade would be able to refill this extinguisher for me? And we'd go, no, we don't do that sort of stuff. And without saying under our breath, we're going, oh, you rat bag, you just took it. Like we wanted to put it out, and you did it. You beat us to it. Like, yeah.
yeah.
So
Thanks.
zero job satisfaction that day. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
you
yeah,
win
no.
some, you hose
Yeah.
some.
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to have your contact details and stuff like that in the show notes. Is there anything we haven't talked about that you'd like to mention?
No, I think we hit everything.
All right.
It's been a really great conversation.
Yeah. Can you just for my sake, hit on your book again, like what it's called, what it's about?
Sure. So my book is the Barstool Theories, a late night crossfaded conversation that may just explain all of human behavior. And it's my first kind of journey into musing. I wrote it a few years ago, and it kind of helped me explore all these theories that I was having in my head and get a lot of things down. And that's what kind of catapulted the start of this whole journey for me, was writing that book, which is
Okay.
available on my website at the
That's what I was
barstooltheories.com.
just going to ask. Yeah. Okay. So it's self-published. So you've got to go to your website and
Yes, or it's
purchase
on
it there.
Amazon.com as well, the
Oh, okay.
barstooltheories.com. Yeah.
Right. And out of curiosity, is it hard copy only, or can you get it Kindle or?
Oh yeah, you can get a Kindle. You can get a
Okay.
Kindle or a not hard copy, but like a soft copy.
Soft cover.
But yeah,
Yeah. Excellent. Okay. That's
of
wonderful.
course.
Well, Stephen, thank you for that. Like, this has been a wonderful, I was going to say unusual, but it's not the right word, just very different. Like, yeah,
Yes.
I've not talked to a muse before, and I probably won't interview one in the next half a dozen podcasts, unless you put me onto one that you know of. But
We'll see. If I
yeah,
find another, I'll let you know.
yeah, all right. I'm going to do a search out there, muses for hire. So,
Excellent.
excellent. Thank you for your time. Well, we're at the end of another thought-provoking episode. Remember to subscribe so you'll be alerted to new episodes. I want to say thank you to the men who are joining me on this journey of intuitive development. I truly hope our time together has expanded your reality and reinforced trust in your ever-reliable gut feeling. Embrace your intuition. It will not lead you astray. Until next time, stay tuned, stay curious, and trust your gut.